And welcome back to Creatives Chat. We're going to pick up where we left off with our convo between Peter and Brian. Roll the intro.
Streaming from Retro Earth Studio and brought to you by
wearehistorically.com, Conscious Brand Apparel, and
Learn to play jazz piano like a pro, by a pro, with Jazz Piano Pro Essentials at jazzpianopro.com.
Join us as we chat about who knows what.
Well, I think that's the thing that's kind of, a fascinating aspect of the transformative journey is, we talk about the rocket ship, which I love. I'm definitely going to be using that, by the way. But it's one of those things where we're bestowed upon a lot of that. You touched on like generational trauma and generational pain. It's just that passing of the baton of just these conditionings that even the parents didn't, or the grandparents, the great-great-grandparents, that they never actually overcame. And I think that's one of the coolest things is the role of the child, is that it's like we have the opportunity to really set it right.
Right. No, truly. Yeah. And especially too, because it's like, I feel like a lot of people hear those things and think like, generational demons or traumas, and are like, oh, that's like a, like a philosophy or psychology. But it really is like a epigenetics, it really is like a scientific thing where it's like, oh no, like really whatever your grandmother was feeling in the 1800s was passed down to this character, who then inevitably was going to pass that down to you if they didn't have the proper resources to deal with that or combat that, which of course, like even outside of the esoteric realm, like those would have been even just resources in, whether they were, maybe marginalized, or whether they even had the access to, those resources, or even if like, my mom will always say like, the craziest people are the ones that don't know they're crazy. Like if you even didn't know or didn't even have the awareness of, oh, hey, maybe these things are going to be a hindrance, maybe not in this point of existence, but in the future, in a reality that is not being operated like this. If you had no idea, you know what you know what I mean? So it is very interesting to see kind of the role of the child in that way, which is a very, I would argue to say a very heavy role to carry a lot of times, but at the same time, a very, very heavy responsibility for a good, purpose to set that straight and just clean slate it all, you know what I mean? So definitely.
Well, it's fascinating too when you talk about the epigenetics aspect of it, because there's so much disconnect between science and spirituality, where it's just like we can do all the studies, we can literally prove it. There's papers written all about it, where you can do the same pain for like, or same like shock for like mice or whatever it is for certain action, and their generations down the line will be fearful of that same noise, that same thing that precurses or that presets that, or precedes rather, that shock.
Right.
And that's one of those things where it's just like they've done it with different apes and all of that, and it's just like, okay, so why do we think that we're different? When we look at like anger, when we look at like the different cultural aspects of just like the different communities throughout the country, throughout the world, it's like, why do people ignore and disconnect the fact that like there is a ripple effect here, and it's just echoing throughout the generations, like.
Honestly. And yeah, you said it best too, with like the science versus spirituality, because it's so strange that they're almost like, or that they're always like kind of button heads, but it's like these two really kind of validate each other in that way, where it's like, I feel like, you talk about like vibes, vibration, science be like, oh, I don't know what that means, Bob Marley, but it's like, no, the cells literally like are giving off a vibration they're emitting an energy from, within, that are, creating a lot of these, what I'm saying? Like, it's like, I don't know. I just feel like, for people who choose to not see it like that, I think that is definitely a choice. But like, I don't know, man, that always was something I never understood, because I was like, this science is literally telling you this thing is happening, like it's a different terminology, a different vernacular, depending who you talk to. But ultimately, like, with the language that is a common language, we're all like, this is what's happening. What I'm saying? Like, it might not be the, a spell or Harry Potter name to it, but I'm like, this is literally that same, so
I've noticed lately that there's been a lot of science trying to quantify spirituality.
Right.
Looking for the God gene. And and there is, and they find it too. But it doesn't mean they can still explain it.
Right.
Well, it goes to show too, there's like, they still don't explain and cannot explain the placebo effect. And the opposite aspect of, the proper term isn't hypochondriac, but it's just like the manifested disease and illness, fear. Like there's been a lot of studies and psych studies that show like when you live in states of fear, when you live in that kind of just self-created story, it was actually a beautiful, I think it was a Stanford or a Yale study, and then there was also a Russian academy that did this as well, but it was like they push certain information out to people of this is real, this is a real thing, and then you would have people start coming up with like their own symptoms with things, and they're like, but it was just literally a test just to see what would happen. So to me, it's a fascinating concept because again, like Western science still can't figure out why the placebo effect works, why someone can take a sugar pill that they think is actually something that's going to cure them, and then they'll get cured. But you start to see certain schools, like there's a few in Germany, there's a few in like India, there's actually a few in America as well, that show the different studies of people who have intention-based things, intention-based meditations, intention-based just like actions throughout their day, their affirmations, and you'll see it start to transform their cells. You'll see them start to change their DNA. Like one of the most notable ones was it was people that were trying to lose weight, and they would have meditations based on like I like positive affirmation, like I'm healthy, I'm fit, like I will burn this, I will burn that, and then all of a sudden boom, like they start to test their DNA, and all their triggers for like their metabolism are on. Wow. Like full force, and most of them were turned off in the control groups and all this other stuff. But it's like, again, we have such power of perception, and that's what I think is the coolest thing to see is when you talk about the vibrational aspects of your cells, like like fear, love, like positivity, all of these things play a role with how we talk to ourselves, with how we relate to ourselves. So like I think that's one of the really cool things about the power of positive conscious music, because it's taking the disconnect from like the emotional, lesser vibratory actions of just like really separation and division, hatred, like the gangbanger, the pill popper, I'm just gonna go lose myself. And it's just like, no, like that's the power of what our music can actually do, is when you sit there and think of, we've talked about with Dr. Pollack in a previous show, just so the memory of water and certain studies that are done with that, where it's like, just imagine like if everything in our society was based on just like positive talk. Wow. Like negative talk wasn't mainstream, like destructive talk wasn't mainstream. I just think that's like the coolest aspect of just like you have an opportunity to really lead the wave in that sense, because it's just like, yeah, a lot of people vibe with what you're putting out. Like truth-based stuff is the shit. So
I think there's some sort of inherent mean streak that we pick up. And you were talking earlier about epigenetics and how sometimes it is genetic and we don't know. It could have been 3 generations ago, and here I am still acting
super
out
angry.
Right.
Super fearful.
Exactly. I think it's learned and possibly genetic, but it was recently brought to my attention about the sometimes, let's just say in the past, I was known to be microaggressive. And I would say little snips that I thought was actually funny. I thought I was making humor. I thought I was being cute. And what I was being was hurtful. And it wasn't funny, and it was hard, designed as humor. What is it? It was hurtful disguised as humor. And it was reflecting my own hurt inside, is what I realized. And so I had to do a lot of cleansing, internal cleansing. That whatever I was about to speak, I had to really do a gut check and say, is this hurtful or hopeful?
Oh, wow.
And, I really, because humor is always at the expense of something. And what I realized is that it's not really humorous. It was hurtful. And so I'm beginning to realize that what if instead of cutting people down, we were lifting people up and cheering people on and giving people the benefit of the doubt instead of trying to get one up on them.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah, no, I think that's definitely what makes like at least for me, like I try to keep it I try to keep positive in like the music, but also just like, just in general, because exactly of like what we're talking about, I think that social conditioning does create like, kind of like and I think a lot of it too is like it is social conditioning, and then I think a lot of it is targeted to certain groups or certain maybe high vibrational beings or where they might be located to then affect them in these different ways. Like I used to be like I would say it's still pretty deep in conspiracies, but like even kind of with like like the vibrations of fear that are in animals that can then if you eat them you could take that on and that's why like I feel like a lot of people act like that's not a real thing. Definitely a real thing, so
yeah, definitely a real thing.
You know what I mean? And I feel like that is one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, like, you know what I'm saying? If we continue to put this in blank and feed this to blank, we'll always kind of have that control of the masses in that way, or like be able to have that, kind of like here, they're always acting out of a fear-based response, which is then only going to trigger them to act out of maybe a fearful place on the inside to project that reality out onto whoever they're around, and ultimately kind of create that negative ripple effect. You know what I'm saying? It really is like, it is kind of crazy how powerful just like like people always say, like, you never know how far a thank you will go, or like a hey, or hey, how's your day, or smile, you know what I'm saying? Because those for some reason are like I think it takes years to create that kind of fearful response to always in that hatred, but I think it takes seconds to rewire that with like a smile or something. It's like makes you really like, oh wow, hey, well maybe today's not the worst day. Maybe I don't have to blow up this school or something. Like with these kids in it. But yeah, man, that is interesting though.
Well, I think that's just again, like I always just want to give shout outs and say thank you to yourself and all the artists who were at the Community Through Unity event, because I think that's the vibe. In truth, when you see how many people were just like posting up, walking their dogs, hanging out at the park, some of the old people who were walking by, the old living, were just like, oh my, like there's one woman who was crying because she was so happy. She was just like, just to think about, just like this was just in the park and you guys are putting this on. And there was a mother who was with her son and was just like, I just want to say thank you for this, because this was incredibly validating for me that my child resonated with this type of music, that he resonated with this type of event. And I was dumbfounded. I was taken aback by that one, because it was such sincerity for just I don't know, as I saw, it was just a bunch of like-minded people getting together and just playing music, hanging out.
Right.
But
yeah.
I think that's the power of, the positivity and just having actually intention-based creatives. And I think that's one of the coolest things to see yourself in, like leading the front of that in terms of like the rap game, the writing game, is that, especially for out here where it's a lot of the people that try to do these types of collaborations, it's all based around like the lesser vibratory aspects of life, like, oh, we're gonna dissociate, through like whatever substance we're gonna take. We're going to get super lusty in like the environment, what we're trying to do on the weekend, and we're gonna go out there and really just, I don't know, I don't want to say like choose to forget real problems, but I think it's through this type of a gathering, we were able to like address real issues, address real things. And I think that's one of the coolest aspects about it, is just like it's about solving problems, not perpetuating situations that might continue them.
And I like the terminology we use to refer to such events. And we say, hey, let's go get messed up, let's go get wasted, let's go get messed up. And then 2 days later, we're wondering why everything is messed up, why everything is wasted.
Why you feel terrible, why you feel wasted, why you feel terrible.
Wow. Yeah. No, honestly. Yeah. And that's even like the best. Yeah. No, please keep going.
Forward to it.
Yeah. Honestly, no. And that's even like the best way of like, I think you bringing that up, Rusty, is the best way to see like how powerful that conditioning is. We're really right in front of our faces and are still like, hey, who's down to get destroyed, wasted, blown up? And, and everybody's like, yeah. But then when it's like, who's ready to, get positive and show some love? Everybody's like, get this guy out of here. Who invited the nobody?
Shut up, you're crazy. And it's like, well, okay, so love is crazy.
Right.
Being happy is crazy. Well, I think I'll put it this way, I know I get this personally like quite a bit. I'm sure you get it too, in terms of like the positivity, being happy and upbeat. People are like, why are you so happy all the time?
Oh,
like, why do you smile? Like, why are you smiling? Like, I've had that question asked me so many times, like, what's so funny? Like, why are you upbeat about this? I was like, I'm upbeat about everything. Like, I'm always smiley. Like, what's your base state? Where are you at all the time?
Right. Honestly. No, literally, that's like, especially with the numbers too. It's like, oh, there's the positive guy. I'm like, I guess, but I'm like, we're all the positive guy. I'm like, we all could be. No, definitely hear that. Yeah, and it's it's just very telling, I think, of like kind of like when you were saying, when that lady came and she was with her son and whatnot, it was just, hey, shout out to y'all. Like, it is funny too, because from our perspective, it really is like really, that was just a regular day for us, just connecting, creating, and just being in a space where we would, we were just shining our light, literally just a regular day, but for someone who maybe doesn't see that often, they literally were probably like, wow, like, thank God that we are here for the, and it's like, it's funny to see those where it's like, for us, like, I think that'll take me out of that moment where I'm like, oh, wow, like this is really happening in a different way for other people. But it's funny to see when they're, maybe trying to get on that similar vibration and, they are maybe introduced via something like that. I think those things are very pivotal moments where it's like, wow, like I happened to walk in the park and stumble across all of these dancing angels. What were the odds of that? And you take that with you, and just, yeah, it's crazy to see stuff like that happen though, when we're just literally like, I was just so blessed to be there. But really, any other Saturday with just my favorite people, just being creative, laying in the grass, doing, what I mean? And to other people, they were like, I needed this. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
wow, thank you.
The reverse
that's
just
huge.
occurred to me. Like, what if we were out there playing heavy metal thrash music that gave everybody headaches and police, they're calling the police, we're trashing the place, we're, flipping people off or whatever, and then what kind of long-term residual
like energetic effect, like
they would have taken home with them. That thought just occurred to me when you went, wow. So on the contrary, not only did we counter it, we gave, like
that's uplifting.
Right.
It's a ripple that's going to be felt throughout the community, not just the beach park.
And see, and that's the power of really just conscious intention-based art. I think that's the real thing that I would love to see more people tap into is really, again, like what makes every artist that was up there special to me. They all speak their truth, like unapologetically, like they just speak their truth. And when you speak from that place of the heart, it resonates with people differently. It's like, ooh, that hits different. Like I feel that. And that's the coolest thing about, the power of, one person, it's like, it's wildfire. Just one spark just to burn the whole field and just get rid of all the waste. And that's the power of what I think is happening right now for a lot of people like yourself and like the music scene. And really, and you can even say like, what would you even call TikTok scene? Like the conscious speaker scene? Like
honestly, at this point,
but healers and light workers are getting activated all over. And I think that's the funniest thing is we're seeing that it's like the time is now. Like this is our time.
Facts. No, literally, and I think you said it like that spark to create the wildfire. I've never heard that before. Genius. Hope you don't mind if I use that because
always, dude.
It only takes a match. One match.
Boom. No, literally. And I think that's a lot of what's happening now. I think a lot of that too is like, because I'm not sure how familiar you guys might be with the recent CIA files that they declassified. They're from 2009, but they declassified them start of COVID about a year and a half ago. And ultimately, a lot of what they were talking about was one, the gateway hemisync process, but also like really diving deep into really kind of uncovering how this life really is, just like, the projection of thoughts via the pineal gland, all of that jazz, but really the powers of meditation, but also like a lot of what you're saying too, of just, conscious and intention based, blank, and what that really can do if you are awoke to that idea, and not really distracted by anything, but truly just in that present moment, in that time is here, time is now, like present moment to create future moments feeling. So yeah, it is mad crazy too, because like I didn't think about that either, Rusty. Like what if we had been playing some Kiss or some metal or whatever, and people be like, oh man, like forget these guys. But like, I mean, hopefully they wouldn't say that. Shout out to Kiss. But you know what I'm saying? Like it just could have been like that, literally one small detail could have changed that entire day. But literally it went in every way that it was supposed to, with everyone who was there.
Shout out to Allison Brittany, shout out to King Dow, shout out to who'd I miss, Peter?
I would say we gotta say, I'll do this. I can just do it real quick. I just gotta give a shout out to Brittany, Allison, King Dow Convo, I Am Us, and really like just
Ty Keenan.
Oh gosh, I can't even forget. Yeah, I can't miss Ty Keenan opening it up out of nowhere, which is like another conscious based person who's coming on Creative Chat at some point. Hey. But yeah, man, like that was a beautiful one. I mean, it's fascinating when we go into this avenue of like what we can create and how we can impact the world, because I think the one thing I've been doing naturally, and I actually had a chance to talk with the owner of essentially it's like a vegan based what would you even call it, like a vegan based meal prep company called the
Nice.
Hustle Brussels. So shout out to Kayla. And we were talking about Dr. Masaru Emoto's like water experiments, and one of the things that was talked about was just like the intention of just like thanking a cloud to dissipate and having it clear away, and having that type of intention based power that we can actually communicate with nature in the sense of the heart, and you'll see the effect of it. And I was just like, oh yeah, do that all the time. I've done that for every community through Unity event. And the first one that we did last summer during like peak Rona was at Jefferson Park, and it was cloudy and rainy everywhere in the city in the entire the entire night before and the entire morning. I think Rusty, I think we actually talked about like maybe even the whole week before, and like week of and day of especially. It was just, yeah, like days before, we were just like, there will not be any clouds or rain at the park. There will not be any clouds or rain at the park, and just had that intention. And like the day of, literally, it was just like the halo of sun just at the park, and then everything else was cloudy and rainy. And then like right when it wrapped up, clouds came back in, and it was very similar at the one at Magnuson. It was a very similar thing, where it was just like kind of cloudy, overcast, and all of a sudden it was just like, no, it'll clear up by the time we get the music and everything. It was just like, no.
Yeah, the day before it just felt like it was going to pour. Like, oh, we're going to get washed out.
Oh yeah. So I think that's the craziest step, is like when we do put in the power of our, as I say, our divine powers, when we do put those in play in harmony with the universe, with source, with ourselves, and speak our truth and dance our dance, like there's really, we don't even know what we're capable of yet. That's the most like dope / terrifying thing.
I think when you answer the call to action from universe, you're just, I want to say, rocketed into another dimension.
Whew, yeah, facts. Yeah, that. Oh, Rusty, yeah, you hit that on the yes. Yes. As soon as that hotline starts blinging, you whoop. Yeah, yes.
Everything falls into place. Like, it's not that I
100%.
And here I take credit for it. Like, I made this, I created this, and
it's like you aligned yourself.
Yeah, and I just want to comment on our part 1 episode. You guys were talking about ego death, and I know you have a whole video about ego death. But to me, ego is like wearing a suit. I go out and I buy a nice 3-piece suit, and I wear it, and everybody's like, oh wow, and they treat you different, and you start to feel, oh, I'm important, or I have some clout, or whatever it is, and then I become that, and then I never take off the suit.
Yeah, right. Wow.
And I forget I'm wearing a suit, and I'm taking a shower with the suit on. And the suit becomes this permanent fixture of who I think I am.
Yeah.
So that, I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there because I was just thinking about that.
Thank you for
talk
saying
about
that.
ego death, and that's what happens is when you shed that skin, suddenly you realize that we're all one and the same. We all come from the same source. We all return to the same source. So you might as well connect with source now.
Right. Like, don't waste the time.
And as soon as you do, that's when you're rocketed. That's when everything starts to fall in place. And the universe, like, we're set up to win.
100%.
We're set up to win when let me put it this way. There's no need to seek control when you trust that everything will happen as it is intended to.
Yeah, 100%.
No, literally. Yeah, and I really just real quick too, what you were saying, Rusty, about the suit. Best example I've ever heard, because for me, like part of my ego, emotion, the poet, it used to be like a lot of. I would wear a beanie and sunglasses. Like that was my thing all the time, like literally indoors, outdoor. I mean, it did not matter. Just, wear the beanie to sleep. Like was really one of those kind of characters because I began to live in what I thought that was create. You know what I mean? But like, I just truly feel what you're saying. When you said, oh, you put on a suit, literally my suit was that beanie and glasses. Like that, when I had that on, I thought I was untouchable. You know what I'm saying? So truly feel what you're saying. Cause it really, I would say works like like that. I think you really have the opportunity to put it on, and just as equally as take it off. But but sometimes I think when you do put it on and keep it on too long, I think the fibers start sticking to your skin, and then you can't. You know what I mean? But yes, when you said that, I was like, yes.
Well, I like the fibers aspect, because when you think about it, like, one of the ways I always like to kind of express the different conditionings that we get and that we put on, what really kind of identifies, or what would you even say defines the ego, is just every trauma, every pain is just like a different jacket, a different shoe, a different sock, a different hat, a different accessory that we put on. And we continue this journey up the staircase of life. And some people will go the entirety of this life walking up that staircase. And I always like to akin it to like the spiritual path, or like the inwards looking moment is when we decide to actually like take the clothes off and walk back down the stairs. Because you're just on this infinite staircase that'll just keep going up. Like, there's no end to the search of ego until you really decide to come back to source. Like, where the hell am I? Like, where did I come from? Where's the door at? It's not up. You have to come back down, and you have to strip each layer as you come back down. And so I love how we're just like the clothes metaphor, I hope this resonates with people, but like, it's one of those things where like, you just keep taking the layers off. And like, the more you get back to yourself, you get back to that pureness. And I think that's the power of what's happening right now with a lot of people. Is I feel like the shift in culture and the creative artistic aspect is what's really going to help people heal, when all of the different aspects of, even just like, I remember the documents you're talking about in the CIA aspects, like the fact that we are living in a matrix of light, the fact that we are that this is all just energy, that we've known all this stuff for so long. Like the ancient teachings and sacred wisdom and all these different cultures have known this since they started writing stuff down in oral traditions and everything. Yet we have so many people disconnected from themselves and source, that this is going to be like one of those jarring experiences for them. It's like, it's going to be a very intense trial by fire and a huge crucible. But I think it's the creatives and the artists now that it's like, it's our role. It's shows like these, it's music like yours that is going to give people a sense of direction and hope and healing. And that's the real power of it too, where I say, just keep shining that light, man. Cause like, it's one of those things that I'm really curious about Incarnate, because I feel like that's going to, and Insomnia obviously, but like, I think that those are going to really resonate with people that are going through a lot of this like dark night of the soul, being like, what the hell's a dark night of the soul? Because most people have gone on them and are going through them and don't even realize what's happening. And like, oh, is this, and the ego always hijacks that fear and uncertainty. It's just like, it's just me going through this, it's me against the world, it's everything, it's all what's happening to me. So it's like, I think that's just like, I'm an objective seer, like how that's one of my things, one of my gifts is foresight. So it's like, I can pattern recognition like a mother, like, so it's just that ability to recognize that it's like, I see so many people just shining their light even brighter and brighter now, and the connections are just coming together, and more people are gravitating towards it, because it's just like society, as we know in our heart, as we change, everyone else around us changes. We can't deny that we're all connected. So it's just like these healers are getting to this point now where it's just like we're resonating so strong that people are now starting to consciously wake up to like, oh wow, this isn't right. Whatever I'm doing isn't it.
Yes, yes, I'm telling you. And thank you to what you said earlier too about the music. I do appreciate that. I just want to touch back, but yeah, no, I truly, I'm excited for it, man, because I think it's one of these things where it's like, it makes sense that it's now that a lot of people are kind of waking up, and I feel like, it's kind of one of these where I feel like if you were to look back at it, like, for me, like, I'm like, oh man, I remember 7 years ago when I thought I was on some shit, and then it's like, oh, okay, like, I feel like maybe, like, even then, I'm like, I felt like, oh, well, maybe this is the time. Like 7 years ago. Now I'm like, oh no, this is definitely it. Like, I feel a lot more confident that whatever's happening in the world, these earthquakes, these fires, I'm like, yeah, they need us now. I see what's going on. So yeah, totally feel that, because I'm not sure what's coming, but I do know that it's the Avengers assemble 1,000%. So we here.
That's great. Well,
Yeah,
I guess one of the things that I'm curious about is like, everyone has moments that truly are inspirational for them and have kind of like transformed them, and whatever acts of grace life, bestowed us. What was one of those moments when you really just kind of, in terms of like the manifesting and just knowing that this was like the path that you're on, like when was that really validated for you? That's like, yeah, this is the truth. Because for myself personally, I'm not going to dive too deep in the story, but it was just one of those moments where I really wanted to know if this was the right path and this was the right decision. And then it was just grace after grace after grace after grace was received. And I was just like, oh, wow. Okay. Thank you. Can't ignore that.
Yeah, facts. No, I would say very, very similar to, I mean, I feel like, and you both have probably felt this way as well too. Like I always remember feeling something in me that was like, oh, I'm supposed to do something, because I could never figure out what it was, like it wasn't like, I knew it wasn't the military. I knew it wasn't, maybe necessarily going back to school, like in a way to, do something that I was not going to be who I was. Like, I just knew it was going to be something, but I knew it was going to be something that I always felt like it had to do with my personality, but looking back at it, that was just my spirit, so I think like, being able to look back at, kind of very similar with the pattern recognition, being able to look back at certain things that like, I think if you look back in your journey, you'll always see that it was always kind of there, except it was at a level that you were able to understand it at that time. Like, I was always writing, or I was always interested in music, whatever, but I wasn't ready to do something necessarily with it, I think, or ready to carry the responsibility of what I was going to do, and, for me, I was very blessed to grow up in a, in a 2-parent household where, like, I had my mom, she has multiple sclerosis, so she's had that since she was 15. She's like 52, what I'm saying? So like 35 plus years of watching, her go through that. And essentially that was something that showed me that, honestly, that this physical body was just that, like, that was truly just that. So like her spirit was always something I was able to look at, resonate with, but understand that, even though she's always been in a wheelchair, always stood taller. Her spirit has always stood taller than anybody else I knew, what I'm saying? And that was something that, at least for me, I knew along the path of finding this and myself, that it didn't stop here, what I'm saying? Or like just with this, and even with my father too, a lot of things he had went through just in his life growing up in Baltimore, and 12 other brothers and sisters type deal, 2-3 bedroom house, like, but being able to understand kind of a lot of what, the mental fortitude it kind of takes to not necessarily keep going, but just seeing two people who have literally at all that they could do was just keep going. I knew that there had to be more, what I'm saying? And I think that was like having that instilled very young, to being able to be aware of what that meant. Honestly, I think that was, that was what always kind of carried me, to be real, what I'm saying? Like, I would never say I knew I was going to be blank, but I mean, I always knew I was going to be okay. I knew God had favored me, or our family, or just something about this personal experience I had. God was like, you're going to be all right. What I'm saying? You're going to go through some things, but you're going to be all right. What I mean? So I would probably say that, I mean, what would you, if you don't mind me asking, what would you both say, for you all?
You want to go? Who wants to go?
No, you first.
For me, it was, I kept getting, because it even goes back to when I was like 19. I had my run-in with the law. Was essentially like my first real like major like awakening, when everything was stripped away, and this inner guru, just provided me a moment to recognize firsthand that like I knew nothing. And when I finally acknowledged it, I was like, I don't know anything. Like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what's real. I don't know what's going on here. But I do know that I want truth. And I do know that I have to clear the ground of my being. And every time I've gone through that type of letting go of something, life has always provided an opportunity for it to be instantly filled in with that truth, with that knowing, that moment of grace, different mentors, different people, those random conversations with strangers, that just like speak life into me. And it was just that moment where I just, over time, I just came to learn to recognize that everything is always okay. It's just if I'm willing to push through that initial resistance. And it's always been like that, because, in my, I've a little bit more of a tumultuous household in a lot of ways, but it was just that ability to always know that, when I lacked that love at the home, I received it through different coaches, different mentors, different, again, just random strangers. And when I was old enough to really recognize how graced I was in that sense, I stopped letting go and I stopped holding on to the fear and let it go. And again, like, I think that's kind of like where I've been at, and where I've continuing to just like empty out the cup, because the more I let go of in terms of like that personal identity, the ego aspects, the more it reveals like my true spirit, my we can call it the soul, the real, the personality, but it's like that harmony of body and spirit. It just revealed this dance to be ever more beautiful. It's like, again, it's just like when you stop being the one that creates these problems of self-sabotage, like life just graces you with all these gifts. So it was really just, I don't know, it's just those opportunities where I just had like the divine whatever, or what I like to call sometimes just that fuck it energy. And, I'm just not going to hold on to this stuff anymore. And let's just see what happens. And life being like, hey, he did it. He let go. And then something cool happening. And then be like, oh, duh. That's what I was supposed to do. So, yeah, I don't know. I hope that answers the question.
No, I definitely appreciate you sharing that.
I was thinking of a moment, and I've had several, but one that stands out most to me is, and it was significant. I grew up on Guam, and I was visiting my brother in Maple Valley, Washington. And on the first day I got here, not being here before, we drove down to a South Center Mall and then drove back to his house all the way out in Maple Valley. And that night, I asked my brother for a car. I wanted to go for a drive because I saw a movie theater at the South Center Mall and I wanted to go watch Batman Returns.
Great movie.
So I drove all the way down there during the daylight and I come out, it's pitch dark because I didn't realize, it gets dark at, it was in fall sometimes. So it was like 7 o'clock, come out, it's pitch dark. And now I had to find my way back to Maple Valley. And I had all these landmarks in my head that I now couldn't see. And I didn't take that into consideration. And this was the day before cell phones. We still had pay phones. And so as I was heading back, somehow I just relied on my internal guidance. I think I turned left here. I think I turned right here. This feels good. This feels bad. No, keep going. And before you know it, I pulled into his driveway. What? And from that moment, I just kind of went, I think I'm being taken care of. Like, I have this overwhelming feeling that, like, it's okay. Like, I have some sort of internal compass that will guide me if I just let it. And so I started paying more attention, but I got to say my perception was heightened because I was in a state of panic. Like, I don't know where I am. It's pitch dark. What if I get lost? I end up in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I don't know what to expect. It's my first time on the mainland at this time, in this area. So there was, but the fear didn't take over. Like, I had every reason to be fearful and then call and then panic, come get me. I don't know where I'm at. I'm lost. That could have been a reality very easily if I had gone into panic mode, but something guided me. And I got to say, the voice that was in my head that was giving me guidance was a new and unique voice. Like, turn here, turn there. And it was just very gentle. I'm like, okay, okay.
Wow.
And so from that point on, I just learned to listen to that voice.
Wow. Yeah. That's beautiful.
I vibe with it.
Yeah. No, literally listen to that voice. It's funny you say that too, because it's like, you can, even though you really can't hear those voices, like they're like outside of your own head, which one is not yours. You're like,
right.
Okay, I didn't say that. So we'll hear what that one's coming. Yeah. That's funny.
When they're talking at you and you're like,
right. That face. Exactly. I'm like,
excuse me.
I'm like, I'm home. Yeah.
Just put in context for those who aren't in the Washington area, from South Center Mall to Maple Valley is a good half-hour drive.
Yeah, context here. Middle of back then, middle of nowhere,
and a very winding road, and it wasn't developed, and so there were no streetlights where I was going, and so at that time, But needless to say, that was just I would say a screenshot of my life, because then I started making, like, how does that apply to every other decision in my life where I know where I'm at and I know where I want to go. I just don't know how to get there. Apply that to business, apply that to personal relationships, Apply that to just daily activities. Like I'm working on a retainer wall, and I sat there for a couple of days, and I just went, okay, show me what to do. And I just kind of waited for my intuition to kick in. And before I know it, I was like, okay, go get this, go get this, go get this. And then you're going to do this, 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 and this. And I'm receiving instructions from my higher self. If I sit there and I ask, I will receive.
Wow.
Gotta be careful. That's the catch 22.
Right.
Well, I think that's actually counterintuitive, because it makes us fearful of asking.
Well, see, no, I'm a firm.
You just need to be clear on what it is that you're asking for. If you're going to be careful on anything, be clear on what you're asking for.
Yes,
but
don't
I think, be afraid to ask.
See, but this is where I like to push back, because I feel like until you really know your truth,
you don't know until you know.
you exactly, you don't know until you know. Like, so when you sit there and ask, like, what is it I want? What is it I'm looking for? Like, who's the one asking?
So this is what you asked for.
Yeah.
Show me the truth.
And see, and how many people want that though?
Because
that's the
really
challenge.
It's the power is in the question.
Exactly. And well, the power is the questioner, is because they're the ones who wield it. And that's the reason why I'm always very, just in terms of like a teaching perspective or a facilitating perspective, is like always you have to be very aware. You have to be self-aware. Self-awareness leads to self-mastery, but all of that is self-love. It's the most loving act for ourselves to really seek within, like, the truth within. And I think that's the beautiful aspect of everyone who's like on this kind of like conscious wavelength, is that at one point you always we're like, nope, it's not outside, and you look within yourself. And when you really start to understand like the distinction between the thoughts, the conditionings, the pain, and the observer and experiencer of it all, then those questions start to carry weight. Those questions start to really have that power with the universe behind you, because it's coming from that place of love, of truth. Versus, I always try to think about it kind of like the genie. It's like people ask genie a question and sort of, I'd like to have these wishes, but they're not specific, so they're kind of vague. And then he gives them like, oh, I didn't want the riches through this, and it's just like, no, like, you had to formulate the question right. Like, the more that we peel back the layers of our being, the easier it's like the process of refinement. It's like the ability for us to really ask the questions that really will cut through to the truth become easier and easier. So that's where I'm always just like, it's fascinating just to see how everyone comes about their path and where they enter this journey and how they continue to unfold in that sense. Because it's just like, life just flows when you really just align with it. And there's so much that could happen. Like, there's so much beauty in it. Like, because again, just how many people are willing to like ask themselves, like, I want to know the truth, regardless of what it's going to do to me and what I think is me. Like, how many people have the courage and the curiosity to keep digging and looking versus just staying in victimhood? I think that's where a lot of people are at right now.
True. Yeah.
Well,
honestly.
this is also, I feel, I'm just throwing this out there. This is only my experience, is that people got on this law of attraction kick and watching The Secret and thinking that all I have to do is ask, ask, ask. It's actually the power of intention. Your actions have to back your thoughts and your words. It's a three-part agreement.
Yeah.
There's follow through. There's action required. When you ask for something, you're asking for more responsibility.
Well,
true.
Yeah.
And so you got to be able to respond. Yeah.
Asking for the opportunity. Well, I guess that's the thing right there, is I think that's where a lot of the victimhood, spiritual materialism, and just the laziness of our culture come into play, or instant gratification rather, where it's, they just think you're supposed to, oh, I'll ask and I'll get it. Because again, we have cliche sayings like ask and ye shall receive, but it's just like, yeah, but you can't sit there and receive when you're sitting in the cave. You can't sit there. You have to actually go out in the world. But that's when life provides those opportunities of grace, is when we actually do commit to doing something. Like what you were saying earlier, man, is like, what are the odds that you're going to be playing with someone that's like, you've been following for so long, you're in the same room with them, and you're playing with these dope artists that you're like, now you have a future connection, you have a stronger, bigger network, if you didn't just ask.
Yeah, no, facts, because I think, and I appreciate you saying that, but no, definitely it's like, because there's like asking you shall receive, and I think it's also like knock and the door shall be opened unto you, and I think that
Mm.
that last part is the one that oftentimes, I don't want to say gets lost in translation, but sometimes I
It's
feel
pretty
like,
lost in
people
translation.
forget about that because it is definitely like you were saying, Russ. Yes, I would definitely agree that there is that agreement where it's like you can ask, and like, I think for
Facts.
people like us, where it's like, we're like these high vibrational beings where it's like I think they think manifestation is like, oh, this really just happened, when in reality it's like the intention was getting the vibration this high in the first place to then know what to do with the opportunity, which is like, now that I have this vibration up here, I have the opportunity to ask for this blank, but I like have put the work in to get to this point. Therefore, the work is going to be put in, because I don't know, like, I feel like it's a weird, I don't know, it's like a weird, well, maybe not weird, but it's definitely, I would say maybe a gray space, because I feel like for everybody it's different. But as far as what we're talking about, I feel like it's all pretty like, yeah, you got to ask for it, but you also like, like you got to show up too. It's like one thing to
Yeah.
ask for good grades, but you got to do some studying. You know what I'm saying? You got to do
Yeah.
some, shake that pencil a
Well,
little.
what you said, I think, is probably like the nail in the head that ties it all together, is the sense of, your understanding of things and your own inner looking determines the outcome in a lot of ways. Because it's like, if you're not willing to take off the training wheels and barriers and walls for yourself internally, life can't do that for you.
Oof, yeah.
Like, it can put you in the position and opportunity to have the moment where you can recognize it or transform that whatever experience it is into some type of lesson or learning experience. But you're limited by your own self-aware, like, of your own self-understanding. Because how many people would be still caught up in fear or doubt, that they wouldn't act. So I think it's one of those moments where it's like you kind of pass the test of life when you choose to act. And then it's just like, okay, they get their prize, but you have to overcome like all of the internal aspects that will like hold you back from it.
Facts, honestly, and I think that definitely is why, like, a lot of times that truth is just so, like, you can feel that sometimes in your chest or your stomach, where you're not living in your truth, but you are too fearful to pull yourself out of it, because like, even for myself, like, I know a lot of the ego that I was living through, really at the end of the day, I mean, they were things about myself that I feel like, looking back at it, I'm like, wow, that was really just a conversation. But because of the fear, I was like, oh, is it going to go like this or what? And then I think that's what holds you back. Is that definitely that fear? Yeah, wow. Definitely feel that. Definitely feel that.
It's the mirror test.
Yeah.
Can you look yourself in the mirror and say, "I love you"?
Oh yeah,
Wow,
you already
yeah.
know. You already know. I'm a big pusher of that one. Like,
It's real.
it's the subtleties that reveal like the greatest truths in this experience, and I think the thing that always kind of uplifts or gives air beneath the wings, just to keep soaring and flying, is just the knowings that when you put yourself out there with that positive intention, that like really just coming from a space of love and just like, yeah, like whatever I'm going to do, it's going to help me. It's going to help all those who I'm tapped in with. It's going to work out well, because you're harmonizing with the universe, you're harmonizing with source, and like what we are is love, as I see it. This is just one expression and dance of love. And if we forget that, and I would say if we invest that love in the false of aspects of ourselves, then it's only that false nonsense that gets fueled. So it's that power of intention. It's that power of just direction. It's that inner looking that really determines everything. And I think it's been really cool to explore, and see like your development as an artist in that sense, especially from where you're saying you're coming from in terms of like Emotion the Poet, like
Bro, yeah.
the intentions changed. And I think that's one thing that's really powerful to pick up on, is just like, I always see things happening for a reason, and we're talking on intention, like intention-based music, having that real just knowing of what you're doing, or even on TikTok and like IG, is just like the intention behind what you're putting out there. It changed from when you were just talking about it, how you first started it. How can I get followers? How can I get money? How can I get this? Just this like, I want to help people. I want to, maybe someone will learn from this. Let's just shoot the shit, let's just throw it up there and see what happens. And then you just see it like, oh, viral, this,
Right. Yeah, no, that is. Yeah, no, I truly appreciate that. Yeah, no, it is wild too, because I feel like it's like, I don't remember the saying, but it's like when you change your perspectives, or I think it's like when you change the way that you look at things, the things that you look at change, you know, and ultimately like having that perspective change, you know, because I think, you know, Sarah from she would do the spiritual lives with us, the four of us, but she was telling me a line from a book, I think it's called Conversations with God, where ultimately, like, I think somewhere in there, there's the idea of like why it is that people have a harder time kind of coming to this spiritual awakening and whatnot. And that is because what it is that it challenge, like oftentimes a spiritual awakening will challenge their already default perspective. And when you challenge someone's perspective, ultimately for some people, you're challenging who they are, you know, and like at that time, and well, with that, you know, to kind of bring that to what we're saying, you know, it's like, I feel like as far as kind of that intention base or just, you know, fear, all of that, you know, I know for myself, my experience, like my old perspective really was who I thought that I was, and ultimately like was who I was at that time, that ego I was living, you know, and that fear-based reality that I was constructing and unable to transcend out of, but more so just stuck in, you know, that really was who I was at that time, I believe, you know. So it's like, I also kind of ask the question or wonder, you know, it's like, you know, because I do wonder for some people, like, are they just, you know, are they just stuck in that, you know, or is that just, you know, is that just a bot? You know, because it's hard to tell sometimes, you know. But you know, so not everybody got a soul, you know. So, or maybe they do, you know. I don't know, but you know, you know, who am I?
Well, I'll put it this way. I think that kind of hits the nail on the head, though, in terms of like, are they a bot? That kind of question is just like they're that disconnected.
Right.
I think that's one thing to think about, and two is that, you know, if you come from this kind of Western scientific approach to life and you don't actually look into science, I'm trying to remember the name of the scientist, but it was just like you know, I drank the glass, like, and I drank half the glass and I was an atheist. And then when I drank the rest of it, I knew that there was God. I can't remember the name of the scientist came out. This is like loosely paraphrased. I probably butchered it, but it was one of those things where it's just like, what if you stay at the surface, if you don't really dive into the depth of like the truth, you come to these irrational, ridiculous conclusions, and you start to just see things from this very like materialistic, egoic perspective. But when you keep really digging for the truth, you come to the divine. You know, and I think that's the thing that a lot of people neglect is, you know, we worship doctors and scientists nowadays, but like the greatest minds of our time all knew that there was a higher power and spoke on it.
Actually, we all worship celebrities
Nowadays, I guess. True. No, yeah.
Oh, that's starting to fade away, hopefully.
Yeah, that's where I feel is like that's kind of broken. I feel like the Church of Science is the new.
Maybe
like,
it was replaced by
church.
Scientists. Yeah.
The Church of Science. It's not really any specific scientist now,
Right.
but like the Teslas of our time, the Einsteins of our time, like they all knew that there was more. They all knew that, you know, like sacred geometry, you know, numerology, they all used it. They all knew it. Like, and that's the stuff that blows my mind is that, you know, we're coming to this return of truth kind of taking over, asserting its true position. And it's been revealing the bots, it's been revealing the people that are very disconnected from themselves and source more and more. But just in that same aspect of people going off back deeper into the ego, it's really drawn a lot more people to the light, like through this. And I think it's fun. It's really cool to me and really interesting how your entire journey has showed, to me at least, the importance of the coronavirus for people. That break, because you said it so subtly, but I think you said it twice, where it was just like, I had the time to look within.
Oh yeah.
And it was just like, oh yes.
Yeah, because you know, I think like at least looking back at it, I mean, and when I say like I had the time, like I like literally mean it as like the time was really like mine, like it was almost my possession, because it no longer began to be 3D time. It was on 4D time, you know, and I was really able to like, oh wow, like I really have the time. Like this is like
no excuses.
Wow. You know what I'm saying? No distraction, excuse, nothing. Like this is all, you know, pretty much in my hands, you know what I'm saying? And I'm able to, you know, really create out of this. And that's what, you know, I think, you know, and a lot of times I feel like source really sets you up only for what you're ready for. But for me, I think, you know, like not to say I caused the coronavirus, but like in my personal experience in this individual thing I call my life, I'm just like, yeah, this kind of had to happen for me, because it was all just perfectly divinely planned, where it was like, oh, I will take these X amount of months to sit idly by, because you really couldn't do anything. And I couldn't, like, ego couldn't exist at that time, because it's like I couldn't put on a fake face and be like, oh, I got to go to work and go avoid my responsibilities. I was was working from home, or like, oh, I gotta go do something else. It wasn't able to leave the house, or oh, I have to, like legitimately, yeah, it definitely was like very odd how that was birthed at that time, but it was so necessary, and yeah, and it's funny too, because I feel like, COVID, I know it's like a virus pandemic. Like I think the virus that spread, at least in a positive way, was just, I was able to put that unconditional love into myself and kind of pull it back from where it didn't need to be, but put it back into me to then put it, really kind of spread this virus of love, but like genuine love, and not this half-ass, like, here's a part of who I think I am, but really just this full, like, oh, this is who I am. So now I can really give this out and, give this kind of virus of light and love, basically. So yeah, I think, because I feel like light workers, I feel like we're combating the virus in this way, and so yeah, it's definitely wild, but
and life tests us, and it's that call to action. Like it's, as I like to see, it's like the divine put up or shut up. Like you're at this point where you really got to like make a move, or you're about to just keep repeating the cycles even worse. And that's honestly, I feel like what I've seen, from people in my life to people who are no longer in my life to like, just that circus of the road was just, it just divided and grew apart further and further the more people got into this, because again, it was that opportunity where it's just like, this was, I actually had a place where I do mentorship stuff at, one of the workers there was just like, I like to see it as God told everyone to go to their room.
Wow.
And just think about what you've been doing. And I was just like, how much I love that. I'm going to use that because I love it so much, because it just speaks so true to my heart, where I was just like, that was it.
Wow. Yeah.
Thank
you for using that.
That was the grace we got. Like, but again, like, are we going to perceive it as what is life doing to me or for me?
Right.
Truly,
yeah, that try me or why me kind of,
yeah. Well, you think about, you said it as well, like in terms of you don't have the opportunities to even invest yourself in those other things anymore.
Oh yeah.
And like when someone's identity is wrapped up in those things, like I'm a super fan, I'm a, like all these different things. We tailgate every weekend, like all these other things. Like when that's not there, what is your identity?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That was huge for a lot. Like, I don't know who needed to hear that. There's somebody on this live that's like, who am I really? So yes. Like someone's going to hear that and just be like, definitely. Cause at least for me, like, I know that was like definitely one of my bigger things. Like I used to roller skate a lot, and shout out to Patterson's West, Federal Way. But yeah, I used to do that big. That like also kind of became like kind of like an ego trait where I was like, oh, time to get more Sunday validation from people I don't know, and then when that was not there, I was like, wow, oh my God, like they're going to be waiting for me at the roller, the whole world is on fire. I'm like, they're going to be waiting for me what if I don't show, and I'm like, wow, who am I really? Am I this egotistical asshole that's just waiting on this validation where I put on these, 8 wheels, or, am I, yeah. So totally feel that everything you're saying. I'm just like, yes, thank you. I feel that. Yes. I don't know who needs to hear this, but somebody will, and they'll feel, yes, 100%.
Yeah.
No.
Only a matter of time before more people wake up to it. And I think that's the cool thing is, that's where I see a lot of the light workers that are here right now, and the contracts that we set out is that, we're here to really shape the new direction and to transmute and pivot these energies that have been happening and coming through. Yeah. I think that's the most powerful aspect, is that, it's the, we'll pop Western science and be like, we all know matter and energy like that doesn't get destroyed. It's just transformed, changes forms. That's exactly why we're here. I feel like is that we're the alchemist of people, the alchemist of society, to really transmute the stagnant, a lot of energy is invested into like the lesser things. But then like Russ, you touched on it earlier, like where you say I feel like we used to worship celebrities. I feel like a lot of that's gone now. I feel like the percentage of people that really do, like, I mean, they're probably always going to, but like more people are awakened than I think we see, just because they're still stuck in certain, older paradigms, but they're not meant to, as I see, lead the kind of coming revolution of the human evolution, you could say. Is they're meant to kind of just participate because they vibe with it, but they're still not sure themselves. But like those of us who have gone through like the dark nights of the soul early, who's been really searching for like truth consciously, like I really do see us as the leaders of the true new world, this true new earth, this true like 4D, 5D experience of the human, human consciousness and life.
Yeah, definitely leading this new renaissance. I'll tell you that. because for what we had to go through to get to this, we'd have to be, I visualize it as like, we're just kind of these floating lanterns in a very dark forest, but there are still people behind us, other lanterns, but they're not on yet, but we're kind of lighting the way, and I think I've always looked at us like that, because I think, that's just kind of like what has to happen. I think it's kind of those, like, if not us, like, if not now, then when, if not us, then who type of situation. I think the spirit that is a very like unique and individual experience in all of us, but like still somehow is always connected consciously to this type of consciousness. Like we all know it's a very like unspoken. I mean, if you know, Rusty, that call that you're talking about, I mean, literally, like, I think, yes, I truly believe that there's something about like us, not specifically as in like we're not better or lesser than anyone, but there is very much so something about just this time, the light workers at this time and what we're doing and what we're creating. I feel like a lot of what was being done in like the 70s and around Woodstock and just a lot of that love, I feel like that rippled out to now. And then I think we're ultimately creating that for what's, still coming behind us in that way. So I definitely believe that. 10 years from now is going to be crazy, but in a positive way, very positive way,
Oh, yeah.
But
when you think about it, our world is in a natural state of darkness. It's always dark. We have to bring light to the dark.
Yeah.
Like if this world wasn't populated, it'd be pitch black, it'd be dark, right? I mean, except for the sun or the moon, but all I'm saying is that when you say light workers, we're referring to everybody out there right now. There's no special person here. I mean, I get that people who are light workers know who we're actually speaking to, but at the same time, we're not excluding everybody because we all hold light and we're all working with light. And we all have the possibility of being a light worker. And I would say, get yourself in the game and become one. Start working in the light. Stop, illuminate yourself. That's how it starts.
Well, that's literally what it's
illuminated. And here it shines out there.
That's literally what it's called in so many different cultures and like spiritual practices, self-illumination. Like, that's this process of unfoldment and awakening, and I think that's the beauty of it all is when you go through the search, you recognize we're all standing on the same ground of being.
Wow.
And it's like, and we're all tapped in. We all have the potential. We all were children and babies. We just got programmed a certain way. And when we decondition ourselves, then we tap into what's always there. And I think that's the even thing about like I want to add on to Rusty as well. Like in that sense of like, we're not excluding anyone. I think the one big thing here is, there are people who are in the healing practices and healing practitioners. And I know I'm a healer myself, but in terms of what I do, I facilitate those to heal themselves. I don't do anything. I'm not the one running around in their head doing the conversations, connecting the dots. Like we heal ourselves. It's just, are you going to listen to someone else and like really ponder on their perspective and see how they came to it? Or are you going to assume that you know everything? And when we really transmute the uncertainty, the assumptions into a curious questioning, we recognize that we're all healers. We all have the potential to heal ourselves. We all have such a divine capacity just to do amazing things. But if we're not aware of what we are, then we're missing the beauty of it.
Facts. Man, I'm telling you, you just keep coming with the gems, but no, facts. And that's
the whole show, bro. It's the conscious show.
No, honestly, I mean, because man, I'm just like, this is this is what I needed. You know what I'm saying? But it is funny too, because it's like everybody does have that opportunity to be a healer and, to really shine that light. But it's funny too, because it's like for anyone who is listening or watching or tuning in, it's like, if you are someone who, knows that, that you've always been carrying a deep light within and just want to do good, just continue to do that, encourage that, because oftentimes like those, and we've all heard it before, but like, the hardest tasks of life and obstacles will come your way mainly because, I think, and if you look at it or, identify it as this, as, the devil or whatever you want to call it, that negative occurrence or, low vibrational attack. But like, if the devil didn't think that you were valuable, you wouldn't necessarily go through any of these things, because, if you weren't, then, at the same, if you weren't, they wouldn't be trying that hard to kill you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But, you look at, I just got done watching Taken 3 with my mom, and I was thinking about Liam Neeson. And I mean, if you truly think about it, I mean, if he was not Liam Neeson, I mean, they would not be trying everything to get that guy down, and still fail. You know what I mean? But if Liam Neeson was just some regular schmegler, maybe not as well equipped person, these movies would not be that good.
Yeah,
so
it would have been ended at Taken 1. Halfway
exactly,
in. Oh,
exactly.
Foster can't get her back.
You know what I mean? And that had just been the end of that Paris trip. But 2 more franchises later, you know what I mean? So for whoever's watching, your franchise is just around the corner. You know what I mean?
Ooh.
So just keep it going.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, yeah.
I love that.
And with that, roll the outro.
That concludes this episode of Creatives Chat. Thank you for watching. Join us every Thursday at 3:33 p.m. Pacific Daily Time as creative minds get together and chat about who knows what. View more episodes on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks again to our sponsors for making this show possible. Thank you, We Are Historically, for your conscious human apparel. Shop online at wearehistorically.com.
Hi, I'm Darius Wilrich. I'll teach you everything you need to know about playing jazz piano like a pro with my 12-week online video course and downloadable guidebook, Jazz Piano Pro Essentials. Enroll today at jazzpianopro.com.
Thank you for joining us. Have a happy always.
No, honestly, I'm excited, man, because after seeing Community through Unity, and really shout out to, you guys for literally curating that and just bringing, continuing to bring that to life and allowing others like myself to even, add anything that we have, add our life into it to, keep it rolling, because things like this are, I mean, truly are just, they're very, very, very needed, obviously, as you know, because that's, why you guys curate it. But it's like, yeah, these kind of things I feel like are like, maybe we don't see it now or maybe we do, but it's like, literally, it's us meeting up in a park as like-minded individuals to meditate and just be happy and merry and just rejoice and kind of break bread in that way that is low-key very similar to any of the kind of biblical teachings as far as what they were doing in that way years ago or whatever. But ultimately it's like it's moments like that are literally like, we don't see it, but I'm telling you, there's a kid out in Singapore right now that is just being touched by that positive vibration from what we did, for something. I don't know, it's that butterfly effect, but I definitely believe that,
Yeah, 100%.
And subscribe to be notified of future episodes.
It's like, it's meant to be, the time is now, let's do it. So